If you are wondering which NFL team has had the worst quarterback play since the Super Bowl era, well, unfortunately for Bears fans, it is the Chicago Bears. Well, at least according to a ranking by ESPN, which I'm going to talk about and get into. Before I do that, what is going on, y'all? FaizSportsTalk back at it with another video talking, of course, some NFL here to, of course, talk about the Chicago Bears. So if you're a Bears fan, make sure to go ahead and subscribe to the channel because I do talk a lot about the Bears and the NFL in general, so you are not going to want to miss out. So stay tuned by going ahead and subscribing and turning on the post notifications and following me on my social media links, as always, in all of my videos. So with that being said, let's talk about this new article that ESPN came out with, in which they basically ranked all of the quarterback play for all 32 NFL teams. And they broke it down into multiple categories. And then finally, they kind of looked at, which team, has had the best quarterback play since the Super Bowl era. And the Bears were, unsurprisingly, the worst in the NFL. So let's talk about it. So yes, that is correct. The Bears finished below teams like the Browns, the Jaguars, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, it's been pretty horrid, okay, for the Bears. And the article looked at a couple of different factors here. They looked at overall quarterback production, Pro Bowl caliber seasons, quarterback continuity, things like that. And the Bears were, pretty much dead last in all those categories. And I'm not surprised by it, okay? But let's actually talk about this and why the Bears have had such bad luck with quarterbacks, right? We know how important the position is. It's the most important position in the NFL and arguably the most important position in all of sports, right? So we got to talk about this. But just to give you a perspective on how bad the quarterback play has been for the Bears, let me bring the whiteboard up here for you guys so you can take a look at the fact that the Bears were ranked last, like I mentioned, in the quarterback production. 48.3 out of 100 is what the ESPN article gave the Bears. And just to hammer home the point here, do you know who has the highest passer rating in Bears history? It is Josh McCown. Yes, a journeyman quarterback who barely played for the Bears. Didn't play very long, but when he did, he set the highest passer rating in Bears history. Well, doesn't that just tell you everything you need to know about the Bears? So there you have it, just to show you, obviously, and highlight the point about how bad the Bears quarterback play has been. And I'm pretty sure no quarterback in Bears history has gone over 4,000 yards or even 30 touchdowns, okay? Now I'm just adding insult to injury, but you know what? It must be said. So let's actually talk about this, okay? Why has this been the case for the Bears? And we're talking about a franchise, folks, which is a storied franchise, has the most number of Hall of Famers in NFL history. I think the most retired numbers in history. So this is a franchise that is an absolute historic franchise, but they've just had very poor quarterback play. Well, let's start by asking who is the greatest quarterback in Bears history. A lot of people are going to say Jay Cutler. And here's the thing. If you're talking about, after the Super Bowl era, I probably agree with you, just because statistically, Jay Cutler owns all Bears records, and it's not even quite close. And a bunch of that is due to the fact that Cutler played with the Bears for a number of seasons, so longevity allows you to pile up the numbers, right? But to me, if we're looking overall in terms of the Bears' entire existence, I think it's Sid Luckman. But again, this is dating back to pre-Super Bowl era. He played in the 1940s, 50s. And so with Sid Luckman, he's a Hall of Famer, right? He won, back then, obviously, NFL championships. We're talking about pre-Super Bowl era. He won an MVP. So to me, if we're talking about the best quarterback in Bears history, it's Sid Luckman, which is, again, it's pretty porous considering the fact that the man played so long ago, okay? And now if you're talking about post-Super Bowl era, the fact that it's Jay Cutler, I mean, that's just sad, okay? I'm sorry, it just is, okay? I don't want to dive deeper into the whole Jay Cutler situation, but you know what? Let's just say I'm not a big fan of Jay Cutler and what he had done here in Chicago. I just never felt like, Jay Cutler led us to anything meaningful. Yeah, we got to obviously an NFC Championship game, but to me, like I said, talent was there for sure with Jay Cutler. You can make that argument for sure. But again, just was not the guy that you can really be proud of to say that this is the best quarterback in Bears history, okay? Because comparing him to the other guys in the league at that point, he was pretty average, okay? And so we take a look at the quarterbacks after Sid Luckman, right? We have Jim McMahon, okay, who the Bears won their one and only Super Bowl with, right? And funny enough, speaking of Jim McMahon, I believe the Bears have only had 5 first-round draft picks that they have used on quarterbacks, Jim McMahon being one of them. And so obviously that worked out for us because we won a Super Bowl, but we obviously know Jim McMahon was not the best player on that team. Then we drafted Jim Harbaugh, who ended up being, okay, decent, nothing great. And then Rex Grossman, we also drafted him in the first round. Remember, we went to a Super Bowl with him, in which we lost to the Indianapolis Colts against Peyton Manning. Still surprising me that we were able to get to the Super Bowl with Rex freaking Grossman. But just show you how good that defense was, right? And then Jay Cutler was a trade, so he does not count. So, again, that's Jim McMahon, Jim Harbaugh, Rex Grossman, and then Cade McNoud is another player that we drafted in the first round, and then Mitchell Trubisky. Okay, so 5 players that the Bears have spent first-round picks on that ended up being quarterbacks. And the reason I want to point that out is because, to me, this is the main reason for why the Bears have had poor quarterback success. Okay, what is the best and most surefire way to guarantee that you get a good quarterback? Through the draft, right? I mean, trades are very difficult to make in the NFL. Good quarterbacks don't hit the free agent market. So those 2 avenues, probably not going to be a good way to go about it, which leaves you the draft. Okay? And with the draft, obviously what happens? The best players that are quarterbacks are going to be taken very, very early. And so to me, a lot of this has to do with the fact that the Bears franchise has never been bad enough to get high draft picks. Okay? We've only had the number 1 pick 2 times. You know what it was? In the 1940s. 1941, 1947. Okay? So when I say we haven't had the number 1 pick, think about the fact that, I know he's retired now, but Andrew Luck, when he came out, consensus number 1 overall pick, everybody knew no matter what team gets that number 1 pick, Andrew Luck was going to be that guy. If the Bears had ended up getting that number 1 pick, they would have taken Andrew Luck, and he would have been the best quarterback in Bears franchise history. So I say that to say the Bears never, ever seem to be bad enough to get a number 1 overall pick. Like, they're not going to be a 2-14, 3-13 team because the other skill position players, the defense, the coaching staff, they just end up being good enough to where the Bears are either mediocre or pretty solid, but the offense is lacking because the quarterback play isn't very good. So that is reason number 1, because the Bears are just never bad enough. Again, this is a team with the most wins in NFL history, the most Hall of Famers in NFL history, the most retired numbers in NFL history, folks. That is why the Bears are never a laughingstock like these other franchises like the Browns or these other teams, right? The Bears always seem to be at least decent, but it has been to their demise because they can't get a high draft pick to pick a quarterback, okay? And number 2, when they have had the high draft picks, obviously they have not been able to pick the right guy. People obviously are going to point to the latest example in Mitchell Trubisky. Obviously, the Bears passed up on Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. I will continue to say that, Deshaun Watson was the logical choice there with, how decorated his college career was. But Patrick Mahomes, people didn't see that coming. Regardless, they passed up on both of them. That was a mistake, okay? And so that cost him. Point being, they also passed up on, Joe Montana, okay? They passed up on Joe Montana, I believe, in the 79 draft, in the 3rd round. We took a running back, okay? So this is not just the first time it happened. It's happened before. So it's, to me, number 1, the fact that the Bears are never bad enough to get a number 1 overall pick. And then when they do, we have a bad draft, okay? So to me, that's what it comes down to. That's why the Bears have had such bad luck. with their quarterback play. Look, again, me and every other Bears fan, we're crossing our fingers hoping that it turns around. But if you want an explanation, there it is. Could you say bad management? Sure. Could you say, bad trades? Sure. Could you say bad coaching? Sure. Could you say bad injuries? Sure. But the two most responsible for the Bears' shoddy quarterback play, lack of quarterback success, is the fact that the Bears never draft high, and when they do, they are bad at drafting. Remember, you get enough shots at the number 1 overall or top 5, top 2, whatever pick, you're going to hit, okay? I'll use another example, but it's a different sport, but it still applies with the NBA and Cleveland Cavaliers. They had the number 1 pick like multiple years. They took Anthony Bennett. He ended up being a bust. But then they got Kyrie Irving, Andrew Wiggins. So point being is, one of them turned out to be very good. One was a complete bust. One was a decent player. So you give me enough chances, I'm going to find the guy, right? And so the Bears just haven't had enough chances, and they haven't been bad enough to get enough chances. And that is why you have what you have, which is the worst quarterback play in the Super Bowl era. And to be honest with you, I can't even disagree with that because, again, it has been that awful. So let me know what you guys think about this. Do you agree with my take that the Bears just never seem to be picking high enough to get a quarterback? Because, to me, again, it's just difficult free agency and trade-wise to get that guy. Let me know down below if you agree with me or disagree. As always, thanks for watching.